Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. The topic of today's video is how to pick lever locks. This video is meant for beginners. If you just want to learn a bit more about how to pick these locks and don't know how to do it, this video is for you. If you're perhaps a lock-picking guru, I think this video might not be interesting for you. But still, even if you are already familiar with the basics of lockpicking and its nuances, you can watch it. So the lock itself was brought to me. Here's the lock. You could say it's old-fashioned and unique, almost antique. It has a single bolt. There's no key for this lock. The lock itself is quite heavy, and compared to the locks that are currently available on the market and currently being sold on the market, this lock, which is considered to be made of a very high quality and durable material indeed, is made of pretty good metal. To truly understand the intricate picking system used by these locks, it is crucial for us to carefully disassemble this lock. By doing so, we can explore and examine the internal mechanisms and components that are involved. This process will allow us to see how each part interacts and functions within the system, providing us with a comprehensive understanding of the lock's operation. We're very slowly and carefully unscrewing the lock. Let's see what it's made of and uncover more. Let's take a closer look at the bolt itself, examining its structure and material, and understanding its importance in the mechanism. The bolt has an additional component, a bolt and a tailpiece. The tooth part of the tailpiece and the bolt post component. So this is a component of this lock. I also want to point out that the bolt post, which is an essential component of the structure, is quite thin and delicate in its design. Most likely it is constructed from the same type of metal material as the tailpiece itself, ensuring consistency and uniformity in the overall design. The tooth part of the tailpiece is quite a strong tooth, which allows an intruder to break the bolt post using a shim by applying pressure to the tooth part of the tailpiece, thus opening the lock through brute force. Now let's pay attention to the actual sliders. 4 sliders. The sliders are quite simple, there are no false notches, and they're spring-loaded with spring wire. The stronger the spring wire, the harder it is to open the lock. Naturally, the faster it wears out because the sliders themselves get worn down from constant turning of the key. And let's say, if you go through 5,000 openings and closings, you might need to throw this lock away, or you'll have to service it and make a new key because the secret part of the key can change. So let's insert the bolt itself. And let's say, if you go through 5,000 openings and closings, you might need to throw this lock away, or you'll have to service it and make a new key, because the secret part of the key can change. So let's insert the bolt itself. Here it is. So let's insert the bolt itself. Here. Now, let us carefully observe the process by which these particular locks are meticulously picked at this moment. To make it even more clear and understandable, I will now proceed to add the topmost slider component. Here, of course, certainly it will be quite inconvenient to open this lock. We can do it like this, essentially speaking. So we see that each slider has its own secret part. These are the projections that are inside the slider. The bolt post, when the key heights are properly aligned, will lift to the height needed for the bolt to slide in, so that the bolt post can pass between these heights. In other words, it will lift to this height, like this, and then it will go in here, passing through. Now, let's move forward to the next hidden secret part of the lever. Here is exactly what you need to do in order to get through this lock. So, we definitely need 2 hooks. So these are the kinds of hooks, let's say, That is, at the moment this hook is not intended for opening locks, but in principle this does not interfere. It can show us how these locks are picked, and you can also pick a lever lock using this hook. It's just that the tip is thin. The lower nose here is thick. That is, it needs to be finished. If you're going to pick lever locks with this hook, it definitely needs to be refined. So we insert the two hooks. One of them we insert right under the tail of the lock bolt. And we apply tension in the direction of opening the lock. So after applying tension, we hold that tension, we don't let go, we don't loosen it. And at this time, while we hold the tension, we lift the levers that are in this lock. We need to carefully and precisely lift each of the levers that are located within this lock mechanism. So let's pay attention. This requires our full attention and focus to ensure that we do not make any mistakes during this process. So we lift one lever. It's quite difficult to lift the levers when they spread apart. So we lift the second lever here, and we see that these levers are falling. So the conclusion is that they are free, and we have, let's say, the upper lever left. When we lift it, the lever spreads apart for a second. We apply pressure on the bolt itself, and we lift this lever, and we can see how the lever rises and gets locked in place by the pin, meaning the pin itself has moved forward, and the lever is essentially practically hanging on top of this pin, meaning, so we found the stuck lever. Next, when we released it from the pressure, it transferred the load to another lever. And we need to feel for the remaining two levers. And when we carefully feel for one of the levers, we can clearly observe how the lock mechanism, well, the pin itself, has shifted ever so slightly. This subtle movement can be seen right here, in this specific area. We take it, lift it, and see how we've made the first half turn. So, naturally, in the same way, applying tension to the tail of the bolt, or in this case to the bolt itself, which we have one of in this lock, we similarly go through these levers. So we first take one lever, lift it, then we lift the second lever. Unfortunately, lifting it right now in the disassembled lock isn't very easy. And then we lift the third lever. And we see that when we lift the third lever, it doesn't drop down anymore to the end, meaning that already halfway the pin caught this lever and it's lifted more. So this means that we've partially relieved this lever from the load, and the main load has been transferred to the first or the second lever in this lock. So we naturally insert the hook again and lift one, go through the chamber, which is quite inconvenient to press, lift the other, and of course lift the third, and we see that it's even more. That is, this means that we have partially relieved this lever from the load, and the main load has been transferred to first or second lever. In this lock, we naturally and carefully insert the hook again, and with precision and care, gently lift the first one, go through the chamber, which is quite inconvenient to press, gently lift the second one, and of course gently lift the third one, and we see that it's even more evident and clear. The lever has naturally risen above the bolt, so the load has naturally shifted from this lever to some other lever, either the first or the second. We naturally go back in and carefully lift one lever, and then we lift the other lever. And now, we pay attention to the fact that we are naturally lifting the third lever. So, as you can clearly observe, the lever mechanism has indeed stopped even significantly higher above the bolt. So we go back down to the very bottom. passing the first and the second. In this particular scenario, we are going to carefully and gently lift up this specific lever. After descending once more, we observe with anticipation that the lock previously secured has now opened, allowing us to continue our journey. So essentially in this way, we've basically made 2 half turns. So, essentially, we need to find those particular levers that are specifically in the most direct contact with the deadbolt post in order to ensure proper functionality. So, if this lever is in the closest contact with the bolt, when we lift it, the load will shift to another lever. That is, the bolt will no longer be pressing on this lever because we've pushed it up and it has moved further away from the bolt. But at the same time, on the other side, the bolt is already getting stuck on another secret part of the lever. The bolt will no longer be applying pressure on this lever because we've pushed it up slightly and it has moved a bit further away from the bolt. But at this particular moment, on the opposite side, the bolt is indeed already, in fact, getting stuck on yet another hidden and mysterious part of the lever. Let's say that's the case. And when we essentially basically lift this lever, we essentially basically free the bolt. So in this case, it went back. It pushed back against this lever. We lift it back up, so we can go through this several times. So in general, the larger the gaps, the more straightforward it is to pick the lock. Well, of course, you need to choose locks where the gaps are kept to a minimum and ensure that the security is not compromised by any means whatsoever. Where there is undoubtedly a bolt made of an absolutely special alloy, there is indeed definitely protection against drilling, and there is protection against picking with a shim. And of course, you also need to make sure that it's impossible to obstruct or jam the bolt in any way from the side of the door frame, whether inadvertently or intentionally. Overall, I sincerely hope that this video was incredibly helpful and informative to you. There's really not much more to say here, but I would like to emphasize the key points. I genuinely think that the essence of how to effectively pick lever locks has been thoroughly revealed in this video. In the upcoming videos, we will be showing you in detail how to bypass the various security features of lever locks, such as false notches. We're going to pick these locks with a hook. So, to pick a lever lock, you need a professional tool designed for picking lever locks, just like you would for cylinder locks. So, in essence, you could say you don't need a significant amount of brains for this. And if you learn to pick these locks with hooks and cylinder locks with picks, it will be more convenient and efficient for you in the process of learning, and ultimately cheaper for you in the long run, because you won't need to buy expensive tools. So, if you're interested in this, stay tuned to my channel. Subscribe to the channel and feel free to ask your questions in the comments. All the best.